When men voted so that women could have the right to vote, that was liberatory. That was putting women in control of their own selves. Therefore, it's not men making decisions about women. It's empowering women. When you empower women, you're not controlling them. When you disempower women, you are, you fucking dummy. Wow, didn't expect them to confirm the authenticity. Yep. If you guys want to take a quick look at the opinion is... Here's the opinion. I went to law school, so you don't have to. Abortion presents a profound moral issue on which Americans hold sharply conflicting views. Some believe fervently that a human person comes into being at conception and that abortion ends an innocent life. No one believes this. No one actually believes this. This has no traditional history in America in theology. No religion believes that life begins at conception. That wasn't a doctrine developed in the 20th century. Total dog shit bullshit. The Bible certainly, and its plain reading, doesn't say that. Historically, they didn't think that a person, the soul entered the fetus until the quickening, which was when you could feel the baby moving and kicking inside your body. Prior to that, theologians believed that it was not a person. The Bible talks about the difference between causing a miscarriage through assault and murdering someone. Those distinct, this has never been the case. I believe in Judges, they talk about getting an abortion, how you can cause a woman to have an abortion by making a special magic potion. I mean, like, the idea that this is some sort of belief that has any basis in theology or religion is laughable, to say the least. It's a modern invention that happened in the 70s because they couldn't say anything about race anymore, and they needed a way to rile up the hogs and control women. And it's fucking embarrassing right now. Here, I'll even show you. All right, here you go. It's in Numbers. Would you like to read the Bible with Mike from PA? We're reading the Bible today, again. We just read the Bible about the other day with immigrants and foreigners in your land. Treat them as native born. Now we're reading some more Bible. If a man's wife has gone astray and is unfaithful to him so that another man has sexual relations with her, and this is hidden from her husband, and her impurity is undetected, since there is no witness against her and she has not been caught in the act, and if feelings of jealousy come over her husband and he suspects his wife and she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspects her even though she is not impure, then he is to take his wife to the priest. He must take it also an offering of 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour on her behalf. He must not pour olive oil on it or put incense on it, because it is a grain offering for jealousy, a reminder offering to draw attention to wrongdoing. The priest shall bring her and have her stand before the Lord. Then he shall take some holy water in a clay jar and put some dust from the tabernacle floor into the water. After the priest has had the woman stand before the Lord, he shall loosen her hair and place in her hands the reminder offering, the grain offering for jealousy, while he himself holds the bitter water that brings a curse. Then the priest shall put the woman under oath and say to her, if no other man has had sexual relations with you, and you have not gone astray and become impure while married to your husband, may this bitter water that brings a curse not harm you. But if you have gone astray while married to your husband and have made yourself impure by having sexual relations with a man other than your husband, here the priest is to put the woman under this curse. May the Lord cause you to become a curse among your people when he makes your womb miscarry and your abdomen swell. Now, would the Lord our God kill an innocent person just because his mom committed adultery? How dare you? May this water brings a curse enter your body so your abdomen swells or your womb miscarries. Then the woman is to say, Amen, so be it. So as far as I can tell, the priest is an abortionist right now, right? Am I misreading this thing? Isn't the priest giving her a fucking abortion slurry to drink? He's basically saying, hey, if this is not your husband's child, abort it. The priest is to write these curses on a scroll and then wash them off in the bitter water. He shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse, and this water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering will enter her. The priest is to take from her hands the great offering for jealousy, wave it before the Lord, and bring it to the altar. The priest is then to take a handful of the grain, offering as a memorial offering, and burn it on the altar. After that, he is to have the woman drink the water. If she has made herself impure and been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her. Her abdomen will swell, and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. If, however, the woman has not made herself impure, but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. This then is the law of jealousy when a woman goes astray and makes herself impure while married to her husband. So in other words, if the curse doesn't work, you got to shut the fuck up. She's innocent. So clearly you can see this is ancient. It's ancient, people's dealing with weird jealous husbands and just being like, okay, the bitter water didn't work. It looks like she was innocent. You're wrong. Shut up. Stop being jealous, you freak. But also, the fact that they would be willing to abort a fetus tells you something, isn't it? What happens when men are impure and cheat on their husbands? So, there you go. And there's many more other examples, but that's the funniest one because it's literally the priest gives you abortion medicine. For the first 185 years after the adoption of the Constitution, each state was permitted to address the issue in accordance with the views of its citizens. Then, in 1973, this court decided Roe v. Wade, even though the Constitution makes no mention of abortion. It also makes no mention of interracial marriage. The Constitution makes no mention of interracial marriage. You would have to, traditionally, marriage law was left to the states. Under this logic, interracial marriage could be banned again, which was, of course, only legalized in 1967 in the famous Supreme Court case Loving v. Virginia. So what you're saying there, Justice Alito, is that interracial marriage could be banned again. The magic trick Christians will use to wave away this argument is that in the Old Testament, and God isn't vengeful like that anymore, that is the coming of Jesus ushered in a new doctrine, just ignore whatever you want in the Old Testament. Well, the New Testament makes no mention of abortion, so I don't know what to tell you. It did not claim that American law or the common law had ever recognized such a right, and its survey of history ranged from constitutionally irrelevant to plainly incorrect. After cataloging a wealth of other information having no bearing on the meaning of the Constitution, the opinion concluded with a numbered set of rules much like that might be found in a statute enacted by the legislature. Under this scheme, each trimester of pregnancy was recognized differently. The most crucial line was drawn at roughly the end of the second trimester, which at the time corresponded to the point at which a fetus was thought to achieve viability, i.e. the ability to survive outside the womb. Though the court acknowledged that states had a legitimate interest in protecting potential life, found that this interest could not justify any restriction on pre-viability abortions. The court did not explain the basis for this line, and even abortion supporters have found it hard to defend Roe's reasoning. One prominent constitutional scholar wrote that he would vote for a statute very much like the court ended up drafting if he were a legislator, but his assessment of Roe was memorable and brutal. Roe was not constitutional law at all and gave almost no sense of an obligation to try to be. At the time of Roe, 30 states still prohibited abortion at all stages. In the years prior to that decision, about a third of the states had liberalized their laws, but Roe abruptly ended that political process and imposed the same highly restrictive regime on the entire nation, and it effectively struck down the abortion laws of every single state. As Justice Byron Wright aptly put it in his dissent, the decision represented the exercise of raw judicial power that has sparked a national controversy that has embittered our political culture for half a century. If you think that is what embittered it, you are a fucking fool. It was the 1965 Civil Rights Acts. Even Southern Baptists didn't care about abortion prior to the 60s and 70s. A lot of Christians supported it, but once integration started happening, they needed a new rallying cry and a new platform from which to oppress black people and other minorities in this country. Blue Light, thanks for the tier 1 for 30 months. But the opinion concluded that stare decisis, which calls, this is about Casey, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which calls for prior decisions to be followed in most instances, required adherence to what it called Roe's central holding that a state may not constitutionally protect fetal life before viability, even if that holding was wrong. Anything less, the opinion claimed, would undermine respect for the court and the rule of law. Paradoxically, the judgment in Casey did a fair amount of overruling. Several important abortion decisions were overruled in toto, and Roe itself was overruled in part. Casey threw out Roe's trimester scheme and substituted a new rule of uncertain origin under which states were forbidden to adopt any regulation that imposed an undue burden on a woman's right to have an abortion. The decision provided no clear guidance about the difference between a due and undue burden, but the three justices who authored the controlling opinion called the contending sides of a national controversy to end their national division by treating the court's decision as the final settlement of the question of the constitutional right to an abortion. Well, guess what, motherfucker? That's saddle up, Buttercup, because that's not how the Supreme Court works. It's whoever has the majority makes the rules. I'm pro-choice, but I don't think the Bible argument is good because it doesn't actually say that. Not that it matters. It's all made up anyway. It's just, the point is that clearly it's not some sort of deeply held religious doctrine, okay? So is there any evidence that we're not unequivocally fucked and absolutely powerless to watch the state tumble into Gilead? Well, as an individual, we are. But together, we are not. We are very powerful if we act together.
There are 5 religious zealots on the Supreme Court at a minimum, and they don't care about logic or principles or ideology
Well, they care about ideology, their ideology, and imposing it. But go on.
Principles. They all swore up and down that the number one legal principle they cared most about was precedent. And they just overturned one of the largest precedents in American history. They don't care. They're just religious fundamentalists. And so they think this is a perfect opportunity to take my religious views and establish a state religion through the Supreme Court and enforce it on you. And I don't care. And they don't care how hypocritical they are. If you said to Sam Alito, okay, then give me your kidney. I can save a life with it. Give me your kidney. They'll say, no, that's me. I care about me. But women, I don't care about women at all. We could just use them as chattel. They'll just be incubators for us. And that's what they believe. They have no morality. They're not going to do the right thing. Look, this is another thing where like Democrats did unilateral surrender, okay, disarmament. So Republicans said, and this goes to a point Rick was making earlier as well. Republicans said, you guys are immoral. Throughout my entire life, they said Democrats are immoral. That's a heavy charge that we're bad people, we're evil people, right? And did the Democrats ever counter? No, they just said, oh, please apologize. I mean, I want to curse so bad, and I will in the next episode when we're allowed. But like, so what was abortion? Abortion was a way of getting people to think they're harming your kids, okay? They claim they're kids and they're harming them, right? What's QAnon? They're harming your kids. It's the same thing. Oh, and then QAnon added, not only are they molesting them and then killing them, but they're drinking their blood. They're drinking their blood. What is that? That's blood libel. It's been around for millennia, used mainly against Jews. So now 52% of Republicans, guys, this is a real number. It's not theoretical. It's a real number. 52% of Republicans believe that Democratic leaders are in a child sex trafficking ring, literally, that they're all pedophiles and they're all kidnapping kids and using them for sex. That's a majority.
And by the way, if a majority of Republicans believe that, a majority of Republicans would be perfectly A-OK with mass executing Democrats. And it's happened before. I know a lot of people like hear this stuff and they're like, "Oh, this is crazy." But it's happened before in South America. American-backed right-wing regimes disappeared tens of thousands of people and killed them. In Brazil, in Chile, in Indonesia, millions were killed. This happens all the time when right wingers get into power through anti-democratic means. This is. If you think this is, I mean, personally, I got to be honest with you. Obviously, I'm going to support every effort to try to fix this country, but I mean, my foot is half out the door. I mean, I'm not going down with this ship, you know. And I don't feel like the Democrats are in any way going to defend themselves or do anything. I mean, like, look what they're doing right now. They have the majority. What countries do you recommend? I mean, you know, I'll have to think about it. But Operation Condor was the worst. 10,000 children repossessed after their mothers were killed during or after giving birth.
Majority of the Republicans in the country, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Cocoa Puffs, that's a good one. Cocoa Puffs.
That actually isn't bad.
No, they're literally insane, okay? And 30% of independents believe the same thing. No, we're in super dark times. So there is no bottom to this barrel. Once, like, if Trump wins, there is no way he is going to leave office democratically. No way. There's a 0% chance.
Chat, I got mass reported on Twitter because I posted a guillotine GIF to Nancy Pelosi's daughter. Can you imagine? It's literally, all it is literally a GIF that's in their own GIF collection. Come on, man. They're trying to say that I violated Twitter rules.
They're not getting it.
Come the fuck on, man. This is they're saying I'm doing abuse and harassment because I posted a guillotine GIF, which is in their own guillotine collection or their own shit. Hey, motherfucker. Don't have that in your GIFs. Don't have that in your GIFs. If that's a bannable offense to post it. My rights were taken. Fine. You can still browse Twitter, but you're limited to only sending direct messages to your followers for 12 hours. I got in trouble. Pathetic. Truly pathetic. Lotsi Core, thanks for the tier 2. Elon will be my liberator. Yeah, of course he will. Truly cancel cultured.
Democrats are not getting it, and they're never gonna get it. Their job is to get their asses handed to them by Republicans. So did they counter? No, I'll counter. The Republicans are evil. They want to use women for their bodies. They don't care about women. If you're a woman and you're voting for Republicans, you should have your head examined. You're a lunatic. You're purposely giving away your rights, and you'll lose them all. And then afterwards, you'll say, oh, where did my rights go? Well, we warned you, and we warned you, and we warned you. But no, you're going to give them away. Gay people,
You know, my personal view is like yelling at people because someone else voted for Republicans. If you're watching TYT, you didn't vote for Republicans, man. Like, come on. The Democrats have the power. That's like, what do you want me to say? The Republicans are doing what they said they were going to do. What are you going to get from yelling at them? What are you going to get? Do Republicans control the Senate? Do Republicans control the House? What's the plan here? Yelling at Republicans for doing exactly what they said they were going to do. How dare you keep your promises? Be like a Democrat. Don't keep your promises.
Those people like, I mean, before last episode, we were joking about the Dave Rubins and et cetera. But Peter Thiel's the one that's financing all of them.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to take away your rights, you moron. You think you're so goddamn smart because you have billions of dollars? Peter Thiel now openly rooting for a dictator. You think a dictator is going to listen to you, you idiot? First thing he's going to do is bash gay people. And you're going to say, well, I have a lot of money. And you know what he's going to say? Just like Putin does right now in Russia. No, you don't. I just took your money. What are you going to do? I'm a dictator. There's an article in Vanity Fair talking about the new right funded by Peter Thiel. They are openly saying they want a dictator. They're openly saying it. That's what's happening next, Rick. Because the Republicans are evil. They hate our democracy. They hate our rights. And the number one thing that right-wingers want to do is lord power over us. And then they do that BS projection where they say, oh, the liberals just want to control your lives. We want you to get the hell out of our lives. We want you to get the hell out of our lives. We don't want you. We don't like you. We don't want your jackbooted thugs in the goddamn government controlling our bodies. But what are they going to do? That's exactly what they're doing on Roe v. Wade and on everything else. We're lambs to the slaughter because our leadership is pathetic.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You got emojis of me, Anna, John.
Okay, let's go to some more highlights. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled. The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision, including the one in which the defenders of Roe and Casey now chiefly rely, the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. That provision has been held to guarantee some rights that are not mentioned in the Constitution, but any such right must be deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition, and implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. So the concept that abortion rights relates to, chat, is called personal bodily autonomy. I can't imagine any version of liberty that doesn't include personal bodily autonomy, where you may be drafted to serve as an incubator for another person without your consent, then you have no liberty. It's been a Supreme Court decision for 50 years. Anything that's is younger than 50 years is not a tradition, I heard. I'm telling you now, this is how it's going to go down. About a week after the decision to overturn Roe is released, AG Paxton of Texas will release an opinion that Texas is not bound by Obergefell. Within days, Abbott will issue an executive order instructing clerks not to issue new marriage licenses to same-sex couples. He may or may not instruct state officials to cease honoring existing licenses for same-sex couples. That's likely to be some language about determining legality of marriages based on sex listed on original unamended birth certificates. State courts will inform legality of Abbott's actions in light of Jackson's women's health decision. He'll probably win at the district court level. Regardless, it will get appealed to the Fifth Circuit, where Abbott will win 100% guaranteed, whereupon it ends up in front of SCOTUS, which has already signaled they regard Obergefell as being on unconstitutional grounds. We will see Obergefell die in 2024. The Alliance Defending Freedom has been planning this ever since it became apparent that Roe v. Wade was going down. Most conservative state AGs have relationships with the organization. I have specific intel that this is the plan for how to expedite the destruction of Obergefell starting in early to mid-July. The official release of the decision starts the clock ticking. It is unknown when they will begin targeting Lawrence. I think she's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. I think this is totally correct. My favorite part of the Constitution is the part that explicitly outlines kidney transplants. Thank you for the tier 2. Yeah, of course, it's nonsense. Yo, happy birthday. Thank you, everybody, for all the support. I really appreciate it. If you want to help me get back to 4,000 subs for my birthday, that would be pretty sweet. We are currently at, I don't update the count, 3845. So we're not as far away as it seems. 3845. Hello? Thank you, Joker. And thank you, Simple Aversion, for the 5-tier 1. Are Miranda rights at threat? Yes. Miranda is another decision that was largely created with the belief that if these rights to like remain silent, if the right to an attorney, if you're not informed that you have those rights, then they don't exist. But nowhere in the Constitution does it say police officers have to tell you your rights before they question you. That's made up shit. The courts made it up. So that's definitely going on the chopping block for sure. I would say pretty much everything that happened after Wickard v. Filburn, including Wickard, is under threat. Wickard is basically the decision that said that the Congress could pass laws that actually affect things. So I would say that all the way going back to Wickard, the conservatives have hated Wickard ever since it passed in the 30s. The entire Warren Court, yeah, absolutely. All the civil rights decisions that upheld regulations against child labor or minimum wages, I would say are under threat. Like the minimum wage itself, maybe even Social Security. Is the Civil Rights Act of 1964 under threat because it's not constitutional? I think they would not do that just yet, just because it's bad optics, but logically it is. Did Wickard only happen when FDR threatened a court pack? Yes. Decision firmly plants America one of the most backward countries on the planet when it comes to social justice, and on the road to be the worst country in the world with the genocidal laws being passed for gay and trans people. I mean, not the worst country in the world, but certainly one of the worst developed countries, without a doubt. Dr. King's policy was that nonviolence would achieve the gains for black people in the United States. His major assumption was that if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for that to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none. Hard agree. Doges of War, thanks for the 5 tier 1s, and CYH51, thank you for the birthday wishes. The inescapable conclusion is that the right to abortion is not deeply rooted in the nation's history or traditions. On the contrary, an unbroken tradition of prohibiting abortion on pain of criminal punishment persisted from the earliest days of the common law until 1973. The court in Roe could have said that abortion exactly what Glucksberg said of assisted suicide. Attitudes toward abortion have changed since Bracton, but our laws have consistently condemned and continue to prohibit the practice. Ordered liberty sets limits and defines the boundary between competing interests. Roe and Casey each struck a particular balance between the interest of a woman who wants an abortion and the interest of what they termed potential life. But the people of the various states may evaluate those interests differently. In some states, voters may believe that abortion rights should be even more extensive than the right that Roe and Casey recognized. Voters in other states may wish to impose tight restrictions based on their belief that abortion destroys an unborn human being. Our nation's historical understanding of ordered liberty does not prevent the people's elected representatives from deciding how abortion should be regulated. So let me just say this. This is batshit. It doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. Either it's a human being, in which case what you're saying is states could legalize murder. Are you saying that states could legalize murder of specific enumerated group? Could you say all 5-year-olds could be murdered if their parents decide? Is that actually within the realm of states' rights? Because if it's a human being and you say you could kill it, then you're saying you could legalize murder if the people's elected representatives decide it. I can't imagine any concept of liberty which says I could be murdered. My most basic, fundamental, natural right is the right to self-preservation. It's the right on which all other rights are derived. You're telling me that I could be killed if voters said so? Based purely on who I am, not on any action or punishment for a crime. Insane. That's the only way this logic makes sense, because the court is apparently not taking a position on when the life begins. Because I have heard arguments that, life doesn't begin when you're an infant. When you're a neonate, you don't really have personhood. Would it be okay if a state legalized infanticide up to, say, 12 months? I can't believe you think that is a reasonable philosophical position to take. Insanity. We have long recognized, however, that stare decisis is not an exorable command. It is at its weakest when we interpret the Constitution. It has been said that it is sometimes more important that an issue be settled than it be settled right. But when it comes to the interpretation of the Constitution, the great charter of our liberties, which was meant to endure through the long lapse of ages, we place a high value on having the matter settled right. In addition, one of our constitutional decisions goes astray. The country is usually stuck with the bad decision unless we correct our mistake. An erroneous constitutional decision can be fixed by amending the Constitution, but our Constitution is notoriously hard to amend. Therefore, in appropriate circumstances, we must be willing to reconsider and, if necessary, overrule constitutional decisions. In other words, stare decisis doesn't exist for stuff I disagree with. This is one of the most radical decisions I've ever seen. It simultaneously is the most conservative and the most radical thing that has ever been put to paper. This is batshit crazy. This makes the Supreme Court a court of judicial fiat, where it can overrule any of its decisions at will, where the concept of precedence is washed away for the whims of the majority of the court. It makes ideological, and apparently, it makes an ideology, which I and many leftists have asserted for a long time, the practicing principle of the court. Nah, we've got more judges than you. Nothing is sacred. Holy shit, dude. This is batshit. This is batshit. On many other occasions, the court has overruled important constitutional decisions. Without those decisions, American constitutional law as we know it would be unrecognizable, and this would be a different country. No justice of this court has ever argued that court should never overrule a constitutional decision, but overruling a precedent is a serious matter. It is not a step that should be taken lightly. Our cases have attempted to provide a framework for deciding when a precedent should be overruled, and they have identified factors that should be considered in making such a decision. In this case, 5 factors weigh strongly in favor of overruling Roe and Casey. The nature of the error, the quality of their reasoning, the workability of the rules they impose in the country, extremely workable. You can't ban it. Their disruptive effect on other areas of law, none. And the absence of concrete reliance. What? People concrete rely on it every fucking day in every state. What the fuck are they talking about? My lord. This is insane. Their own factors that they bring up weigh against it. Holy shit, this is batshit. Don't forget that SCOTUS made up most of its power and doesn't derive it from the Constitution. I really hope this opens Biden's eyes. Blah, blah. Democrats will never change. You have to understand there is a cognitive bias for people, which is to keep doing what they're already doing, okay? To make people not do what they already do is like lifting a mountain with your bare hands, okay? People keep doing what they like to do, and that's that. I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. A bunch of people are guilty of it. Now, to cause someone to actually get off their lazy fucking ass and do something, there has to be a certain set of conditions, and those conditions do not exist yet for the Democratic Party leadership. Hopefully, in the days and weeks to come, you'll help create those conditions where they fear for their lives. Political lives, chat. I am not advocating, nor have I ever advocated, that you take matters into your own hands and commit violence. That would be illegal, and I'm not allowed to say that, okay? That's against the rules of Twitch, so I would never advocate for it. Obviously, the rules of Twitch are important, and this platform is important, so don't go out there and just commit violence. That would be stupid. You have to act within the law. The sacred law. An erroneous interpretation of the Constitution is always important, but some are more damaging than others. The infamous decision Plessy v. Ferguson was one such decision, betrayed her commitment to equality under law. It was egregiously wrong, and as Solicitor General agreed at oral argument, it should have been overruled at the earliest opportunity. Roe was also egregiously wrong and deeply damaging. For reasons already explained, Roe's constitutional analysis was far outside the bounds of any reasonable interpretation of various constitutional provisions to which it vaguely pointed. Roe fanned into life an issue that has inflamed our national politics in general and obscured within its smoke the selection of justices to this court ever since. Bullshit. They cited dissent from Scalia. Decisions that find in the Constitution principles or values that cannot be fairly read into that document usurp the people's authority, for such decisions represent choices that the people have never made and they cannot disavow through a corrective legislation. For this reason, it is essential that the court maintain the power to restore authority to its proper possessors by correcting constitutional decisions that on reconsideration are found to be mistaken. Okay, so this is just basically saying we get to overturn decisions that we think are wrong, which, duh. This could be posted on literally any fucking decision. It's utterly meaningless. So factor one might as well not even be there. Useless. Under our precedents, the quality of the reasoning in a particular case has an important bearing on whether it should be reconsidered. Janice? Oh my God. They're citing a case that basically said that you can't force people to pay union dues or something called agency fee. There used to be a Supreme Court decision that said that states had the authority to tell people who are working at a union workplace who are covered by a collective bargaining agreement that they had to pay for their share of the negotiating costs. Not full union dues. They didn't have to be a member of the union, but they couldn't free ride. They had to pay their portion of the costs for negotiating their contract. And the Janus case, which is Janus versus state, county, and municipal employees, was a conservative case that happened very recently, which basically overturned that previous Supreme Court decision that said you couldn't be a free rider and said you had the right to receive services from unions free of charge. If you decide you didn't want to pay for it, you cannot pay for it. And in fact, the union was your slave. Wow, they're citing that. Incredible. Roe found that the Constitution implicitly conferred a right to obtain an abortion, but it failed to ground its decision in text, history, or precedent. It relied on an erroneous historical narrative. This is all personal opinion bullshit. No citations, by the way. I've never seen, holy shit, I don't think I've ever seen a paragraph like this. This is dicta. Where the fuck are your cites? That's an entire paragraph. No cites? This is insane. Roe found that the Constitution implicitly conferred a right to obtain an abortion, but it failed to ground its decision in text, history, or precedent. Relied on an erroneous historical narrative, devoted great attention to, and presumably relied on matters that have no bearing on the Constitution, disregarded the fundamental difference between the precedents on which it relied and the question before the court, concocted an elaborate set of rules with different restrictions, but did not explain how this verifiable code could be teased out of anything in the Constitution, history of abortion laws, prior precedent, or any other cited source. The Casey plurality, while reaffirming Roe's central holding, pointedly refrained from endorsing most of its reasoning, revised the textual basis for the abortion rights, silently abandoned Roe's erroneous historical narrative, and jettisoned the trimester framework, but it replaced it with a scheme with an arbitrary undue burden test that relied on an exceptional version of stare decisis that is explained below. The court had never before applied and has never invoked since. By the way, this isn't even true. The court has a number of times come up with standards and rules and what they call tests all the time. We have the lemon test. Here's an example of a test the court created. The lemon test for, I believe, for obscenity, which basically was invented. This is the lemon test. I'm sorry. This is for the establishment of religion. For a law to be considered constitutional under the established clause of the First Amendment, the law must have a legitimate secular purpose, not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion, and not result in an excessive entanglement of government and religion. They made this shit up. Just like they did with Roe. These kind of tests happen all the time. The fuck are they talking about? What's the obscenity test again? The obscenity test. It's the Miller test. Okay. I flipped the Miller test and the lemon test. Sorry about that, Chad. It's been a while since I looked at this shit. Here's another example of how they do it. Here's the Miller test. The three-prong obscenity test. Miller test was developed in the 1973 case Miller versus California. I believe Miller was a guy who was buying child porn. I believe Miller was the guy who was buying child porn, right? And he was getting it sent through the mail. And he was like, I'm allowed to have that. Marvin Miller, an owner-operator of California mail-order business specialized in pornographic film and books, sent out a brochure advertising books and a film that graphically depicted sexual activity between men and women. The brochure used the mailing contained graphic images from the books and the film. Okay, it was just a porn thing. Who gives a shit? I'm thinking about a different case then. It's just a porn catalog. Okay, I'm misremembering. There's so many cases. The CP case was New York versus Ferber. Thank you, Masha Taffy. It's all con laws coming back to me, Chad. It's all coming back to me. Whether the average person applying contemporary community standards would find the work taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest. Prurient interest is basically Coomer interest, if you want to know what prurient is. Basically, like, does it make you horny? Is the purpose for you to jack off? That's basically what prurient means. If something appeals to your prurient interest, it's there to, make you sexually aroused. That's its primary purpose. Whether the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct or excretory functions. In other words, whether or not you show like sex acts or like shitting or something, you're not, and you do it like right there, boom, you're seeing someone take a shit. That's patently offensive, right? According to the court. And whether the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. So you could show this stuff, but if there's like other value that the judges determine, then it's okay. Just a JD, Damon. I don't want to be a lawyer. Can you imagine wanting to be a lawyer with this Supreme Court? Embarrassing. So this thing about them like, oh, they're making a statute. Do this all the time. And by the way, conservative judges do it all the time too. This is not just like, oh, lib justices do this. Roe was on a collision course with the Constitution from the day it was decided decided Casey perpetuated its errors, and the errors do not concern. Actually, I wanted to see, before I scroll down, I wanted to see their argument about concrete reliance. I want to see their argument against concrete reliance, because this is one of the things that is fucking insane. All right, here we go. The fuck? It's page 60. He's saying that women who rely on the existence of abortion rights don't rely on it like you would rely on a contract, right? Like you don't rely on abortion rights because like you had an abortion in the past, or you would want an abortion in the future. You know, when they mean reliance, they mean like you and I say, oh yeah, you have a contract you want to be my editor, and I say, yeah, I'll pay you $100 per video to edit, and then you spend 40 hours and edit me 10 videos, and then you come to give me the videos, and I'm like, oh, I changed my mind, I don't want you to edit those videos. Well, you relied on my promise that we had a deal for all those videos, so you could sue me to get paid. That's what they mean by reliance. Reliance of like, oh, women everywhere rely on the right to have an abortion in their everyday life, you know, when they have sexual relationships, or when they decide that it's bad for them and their health. None of that matters. All the people who set up clinics and who to provide abortion services and hire employees and receptionists and nurses and doctors, oh, none of those people rely on the abortion right. That doesn't matter. Those contracts don't matter. Those are not concrete reliance. That is what they're saying. And that's, of course, bad shit. Oh, thanks, Lex Braddock. 31 and 32 is where they talk about the other cases. Okay. Nor does the right to obtain an abortion have a sound basis of precedent. Casey relied on cases involving the right to marry a person of a different race, the right to marry while in prison, the right to obtain contraception, the right to reside with relatives, the right to make decisions about the education of one's children, the right to not to be sterilized without consent, and the right in certain circumstances not to undergo involuntary surgery, forced administration of drugs, or other substantially similar procedures. Those are fucking obviously abortion related, because it has to do with bodily autonomy and the assertion of your own control over yourself. What? I can't believe they're this dense. Obviously, what the fuck? Respondents and the Solicitor General also rely on post-Casey decisions like Lawrence v. Texas, right to engage in private consensual sexual acts, and Obergefell, the right to marry a person of the same sex. These attempts to justify abortion through appeals to a broader right to autonomy and to define one's concept of existence prove too much. These criteria at a high level of generality could license fundamental rights to illicit drug use, prostitution, and the like. None of these rights has any claim to being deeply rooted in history. None of these rights has any claim to being deeply rooted in history. They just said earlier in the same decision that anything that's not deeply rooted can be thrown out. That obviously includes Obergefell and Lawrence. Because people had been, if you don't know, chat, if you're new to my stream, welcome. But we've talked about this before. Lawrence v. Texas was the case that said that gay sex is legal. Basically, the concept of you could be gay and in your own home have sexual relations with other adults of the same sex consensually. One of the justices who voted against that case, who said it should be allowed to be banned, is still on the court, Clarence Thomas. There he is right here. Basically, what happened in the Lawrence case is two gay men were at home at their apartment having sex, and a neighbor called and said they thought they might have heard a domestic dispute. So the police kicked down their door and caught the two men engaging in consensual gay sex. They arrested the men for deviant sexual intercourse, and they convicted them. They were found guilty in court of deviant sexual intercourse. Texas, and you know what year that was, chat? 2003. I think they actually got arrested in 2000, but this case was decided in 2003. So up until 2003, the police could come into your house without a warrant, see you having gay sex, and arrest you, and then convict you. And 3 judges agree with that. In a 6-3 opinion delivered by Justice Anthony Kennedy, who's been since replaced by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who's voting to overturn Roe, the court held that the Texas statute making it a crime for 2 persons of the same sex to engage in intimate sexual conduct violates the Due Process Clause, which is exactly what they say doesn't work in this opinion. They're saying you can't use the 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause, to uphold abortion. Lawrence v. Texas depends on that same Due Process Clause. They are coming to ban gay sex. Are you gay? Are you queer? They're coming for you, especially if you're in a red state. That's what you need to know. After explaining what it deemed the doubtful and overstated premises of Bowers, the court reasoned that the case turned on whether Lawrence and Garner were free as adults to engage in the private conduct and the exercise of their liberty under the Due Process Clause. Their right to liberty under the Due Process Clause gives them the full right to engage in their contact without the intervention of government, aka the government shouldn't be so big it can go to your bedroom. Justice Scalia, Justice Thomas, Justice Rehnquist, they disagree. The court should be able, the police should be able to come into your bedroom with your adult partner and arrest you because you're queer. 3 justices said that in 2003. And since then, Souter, gone. Ginsburg, gone. Breyer, gone. Kennedy, gone. O'Connor, gone. Stevens, gone. Every single person who voted in favor of you having the right to be queer is off the Supreme Court. Everyone. And conservatives have appointed 5 of those people. The replacements for 5 of those people were appointed by Donald Trump and George W. Bush. If you don't recognize that Roe v. Wade is just the tip of the iceberg, you're fucking not paying attention. They try to make the justification on page 32 that abortion is somehow morally different. We're going to keep looking. This Texas statute furthers no legitimate state interest which can justify its intrusion into the personal and private life of the individual, continued Justice Kennedy. Accordingly, the court overruled Bowers. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor filed an opinion concurring in the judgment. Justice Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia, with whom Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist and Justices Thomas joined, filed dissents. Nor does the right to obtain an abortion have a sound basis and precedent. Casey relied on cases involved. Okay, so this is where we were. Those attempts to justify abortion through appeals to a broader right to autonomy and to define one's concept of existence prove too much. Those criteria at a high level of generality would license fundamental rights to illicit drug use, prostitution, and the like. All those, by the way, are analogies that conservatives have used for what gay sex. It's like incest. It's like bestiality. It's like bigamy. It's like prostitution. You legalize gay marriage and gay sex, then you gotta legalize those. You can't distinguish. That's been their case. That's been the conservative argument for a long time. It sharply distinguishes the abortion right from the rights recognized in the cases in which Roe and Casey relies, something that both those decisions acknowledge. Abortion destroys what those decisions call potential life, and what the law at issue in this case recognizes the life of an unborn human being. Wait, really? Do you have Greenwald's link? Oh God, give me Greenwald's take. Give me Greenwald's take. I want to rage. Give me Glenn Greenwald's take. None of the other decisions cited by Roe and Casey involve the critical moral question posed by abortion. They are therefore in opposite. They do not support the right to obtain an abortion, and by the same token, our conclusion that the Constitution does not confer such a right does not undermine them in any way. Bullshit. Roe v. Wade was a decision issued by 7 men. See, the thing is, Glenn, and I'm going to help you out here, brainworm, is that was liberatory. When men voted so that women could have the right to vote, that was liberatory. That was putting women in control of their own selves. Therefore, it's not men making decisions about women. It's empowering women. When you empower women, you're not controlling them. When you disempower women, you are, you fucking dummy. You know, the Red Army, when it liberated the concentration camps, was using force, just like the Nazis used force. Yeah, no fucking shit, moron. God damn, he's dumber than dirt. In drawing this critical distinction between the abortion right and other rights, it is not necessary to dispute Casey's claim, which would we accept for the sake of argument. The specific practices of states at the time of the adoption of the 14th Amendment do not mark the outer limits of the substantive sphere of liberty which the 14th Amendment protects. Abortion is nothing new. It has been addressed by lawmakers for centuries, and the fundamental moral question that it poses is ageless. And for the longest time, abortion was legal, both morally, theologically, legally. Abortion bans are weird and new. When it comes to politics and people's lives, if you lie or slander somebody. Also, even when cases where abortion was illegal, it wasn't treated as a murder. It was treated as some sort of offense against the state or a violation of practicing medicine against licensure rules. It wasn't ever treated as a human fucking being. When it comes to politics and people's lives, if you lie or slander somebody, I think it should be some serious jail time or huge fines, community service. If you have a business, you should no longer be able to own it. Consequences need to be dealt out. I mean, you're becoming authoritarian left, like me. Unfortunately, I can't tweet right now, chat, because I posted a guillotine to Christine Pelosi. Yeah, Skater Dude, thanks for the tier 1. Appreciate that. Vendors of Rowan Casey do not claim that any new scientific learning calls for a different answer to the underlying moral question, but they do contend that changes in society require the recognition of a constitutional right to obtain an abortion. What the fuck are they talking about? Of course that's true. Science proves that there's no person. What the fuck are you talking about? You're playing right into the liberals and conservatives' hands every time you equate doing anything to being authoritarian. Isn't authoritarianism when the government does stuff. Distinction and difference between justifiably authoritative action and justifiably authoritarian oppression. Or unjustifiably. Oh, of course, Funkadelic, of course. I just think making people more comfortable with the exercise of authority is part of the political project that I believe in. If you're somebody who is anti-authority, then you're probably not going to like it here, because I don't think capitalists are going to be taught through persuasive argument or hug boxing that they should give up their wealth. I think it's going to have to be taken by organized force. That's my personal opinion. If you have a different one, good luck with your nonviolent fucking hug box, okay? Without the availability of abortion, they maintain, people will be inhibited from exercising their freedom to choose the types of relationships they desire. Women will be unable to compete with men in the workplace and in other endeavors. Americans who believe that abortion should be restricted press countervailing arguments about modern developments. They note with that attitudes about the pregnancy of unmarried women have changed drastically, that federal and state laws ban discrimination on the basis of pregnancy, that leave for pregnancy and childbirth are now guaranteed by law in many cases. What? You get 6 weeks of unpaid time. What are you talking about? Wow, thank you for the support. That the costs of medical care associated with pregnancy are covered by insurance or government assisted. No, they're fucking not. My own personal plan requires me to put out $7,000 for the birth of a child. And I have a gold plan. You're a fucking idiot. And I, get the fuck out of here. That states have increasingly adopted safe haven laws, which generally allow women to drop off babies anonymously. What? Oh, you could carry a baby to full term and then put it on a firehouse's steps. That means abortion should be banned. Are you fucking serious? And that the woman who puts her newborn up for adoption today has little reason to fear that the baby will not find a suitable home. What? Okay, Chad, I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot more children in the foster. Okay, what the? Calm down. That there is a surplus of children in foster care. You're fucking batshit, dude. He's fucking batshit. They also claim that many people now have a new appreciation of fetal life, and when the prospective parents want to have a child view a sonogram, they typically have no doubt that what they see is their daughter or son. What? When prospective parents who want to have a child. Chad, sometimes when I dated someone, I put my face and their face into like Face App and simulated what a child would look like as like a fun thing in a serious relationship that you might talk about. That's the same thing as actually having a child already. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I can't believe that's real. That's in a Supreme Court decision. What he's saying pertains to infants, which are far more popular than aged children when it comes to adoption. It's nitpicky detail nonetheless. Your point still stands for older children. It's a silly argument that featured in such an enormous case of Roe. They're saying because sometimes people want to adopt babies, you shouldn't be able to get an abortion. That's batshit. He's saying because this exists, you shouldn't be able to have an abortion. A baby patch or baby box is a place where people, typically mothers, can bring babies, usually newborn, and abandon them anonymously in a safe place to be found and cared for. This kind of arrangement was common in the Middle Ages in the 18th and 19th centuries when the device was known as a foundling wheel. Foundling wheels were taken out of use in the late 19th century, but a modern form, the baby hatch, began to be introduced. The hatch is known in German-speaking countries as baby clap. Clap your baby, Chad. Oh, Jesus. Baby fenster, baby window, or baby wiga, baby cradle. In Italian, it is culla per la vita, or ruta dei travoltali, ruta dei travoltati. In Sicilian, it's la ruta. Okay, in northern Italy, they're more like this. In Sicily, they're more like this. In Sicily, they come down. They like flip it. They're like down on you. In northern Italy, they're more like this. Okay, sorry, we're not gonna keep reading. This case is one of those where I almost feel like there is such a disconnect between the way our systems work and what regular people, how they think they work. I mean, this case is one of the most poorly written and worst reasoned cases I've ever seen. It's also radically disruptive and extreme. Thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. Millions of women are going to be forced into pregnancies they don't want. This is going to put a tremendous strain on social services in dozens of states. People are going to lose their medical licenses, be prosecuted, become bankrupted. This is so extreme. And the libs are not going to do anything. Both sides make important policy arguments, but supporters of Roe and Casey must show this court that it has the authority to weigh those arguments and decide how abortion may be regulated in the states. They have failed to make that showing, and thus we return the power to weigh those arguments to the people and their elected representatives. And those elected representatives may gerrymander their voters. They may rig the system with voter suppression. They may ban people from voting from prison. They may be elected by a minority and never be challenged. Is this a done deal? Did we lose? I mean, it's not officially released, but yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. Why is nobody asking how we are going to pay for these social services for all these unwanted babies? Because they don't care. They're going to cut it anyway. Wow, this was bad, man. Neither decision has ended debate over the issue of constitutional right to obtain an abortion. Indeed, in this case, 26 states expressly ask us to overrule Roe and Casey and return the issue of abortion to the people and their elected representatives. The court's ability to end debate on the issue should not have been surprising. This court cannot bring about the permanent resolution of a rancorous national controversy simply by dictating a settlement and telling the people to move on. Whatever influence the court may have on public attitudes must stem from the strength of our opinions, not an attempt to exercise raw judicial power. Do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. Radical opinion. Absolutely no. This is, I mean, can you imagine if there was a Supreme Court case that said you couldn't own land? I mean, this is one of the most disruptive, insane things I've ever seen. Taking away rights from half the population. Even if we could foresee what will happen, we have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision. We can only do our job, which is to interpret the law, apply longstanding principles of stare decisis, and decide this case accordingly. In other words, they say that we don't care about the consequences of our decision. No matter how bad, we can't consider the consequences of their decision. Madness. They're saying if this decision would result in the extinction of humanity, we would still make it. This is a moral depravity. We therefore hold the Constitution does not confer a right to an abortion. Roe and Casey must be overruled, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. We must now decide what standard will govern if state abortion regulations undergo constitutional challenge and whether the law before us satisfies the appropriate standard. Under our precedents, rational basis review is the appropriate standard for such challenges. As we have explained, procuring an abortion is not a fundamental constitutional right because such a right has no basis in the constitutional text or our nation's history. It follows that the states may regulate abortion for legitimate reasons and which such regulations are challenged under the constitutions. Courts cannot substitute their social and economic beliefs for the judgment of legislative bodies. That respect for a legislative judgment applies even when the laws at issue concern matters of great social significance. A law regulating abortion, like other health and welfare laws, is entitled to a strong presumption of validity. It must be sustained if there is a rational basis on which the legislature could have thought that it would serve legitimate state interests. These legitimate interests include respect for and preservation of prenatal life at all stages of development, the protection of maternal health and safety, the elimination of particularly gruesome or barbaric medical procedures, preservation of the integrity of the medical profession, the mitigation of fetal pain, and the prevention of discrimination on the basis of race, sex, or disability. These legitimate interests justify Mississippi's Gestational Age Act. Except in a medical emergency or in the case of severe fetal abnormality, the statute prohibits abortion if the probable gestational age of the unborn human being has been determined to be greater than 15 weeks. The Mississippi legislature's findings recount the stages of human prenatal development and assert the state's interest in protecting the life of the unborn. The legislature has found that abortions performed after 15 weeks typically use the dilation and evacuation procedure, and the legislature found the use of this procedure for non-therapeutic or elective reasons a barbaric practice, dangerous for the maternal patient, and demeaning to the medical profession. These legitimate interests provide a rational basis for the Gestational Age Act, and it follows that respondents' constitutional challenge must fail. We end this opinion where we began. Abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Roe and Casey abrogated that authority. We must now overrule those decisions and return that authority to the people and their elected representatives. The judgment of the Fifth Circuit is reversed, and the case is remanded for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. It is so ordered. This is what it looks like when you win. That's how a winning case ends. You don't see that much when liberals are writing. You have an obligation to like, comment, and subscribe.